Chapter 1. The Call That Erased Me. This is Evelyn Hart, and for most of my life, my family only remembered me when something broke. Their furnace in winter, their cars before work, their silence when everything worked just fine. I fixed what no one else wanted to deal with, quietly, without asking for thanks. Until one afternoon, standing alone in my garage with grease on my hands, I realized they weren't just using my skills, they were erasing me. And they thought I would stay quiet forever. That afternoon, the moment everything finally became clear, started like any other workday. The last car of the day was still up on the lift when my phone started buzzing against the metal workbench. I had one hand inside the wheel well, fingers slick with grease, the other hand reaching blindly for the phone because the ringtone kept cutting through the hum of the shop fan. It was late afternoon, the kind of gray Iowa light that makes everything look a little tired. My garage smelled like warm rubber and brake dust and the cheap pine cleaner I used on the floor when I had time. The screen showed my mother's name, Celeste Kincaid. I stared at it for half a second longer than I should have. I wiped my palm on my coveralls, left a dark smear anyway, and answered. "Hi, Mom," I said. Her voice came through soft, controlled, like she was calling from a quiet room with the door shut. "Maris," she said, "I just wanted to catch you before it got too late." I glanced at the clock over the office door. Almost 6. I could hear Rosa in the back organizing invoices, the sound of paper sliding and the printer coughing. Outside, a light snow had started drifting down, lazy flakes that would turn to slush by morning. "I'm still at the shop," I said. "What's going on?" There was a pause. Not long, just long enough for her to pick the right words. My mother always picked the right words. She could cut you with them and still make you feel guilty for bleeding. "So, Thanksgiving," she said. "We need to talk about Thanksgiving." My shoulders tightened without my permission. "Okay," I said. "Your sister has a lot going on," Celeste continued, "and this year is important. It needs to go smoothly." I leaned my hip against the tool cart. I tried to keep my voice neutral. "Tessa always has a lot going on," I said. Celeste let out a small breath that might have been a laugh if she were anyone else. "Don't start," she said. "I'm trying to handle this the best way I can." I could hear the carefulness in her tone, like she was stepping over a crack in the ice. "Handle what?" I asked. "The Wexlers are coming," she said. "They're stopping by after dinner. Not for long, just a visit. Tessa wanted them to see the house while everything is, festive." Her words softened around the last part, like she was smoothing a wrinkle in a tablecloth. The Wexlers. Graham Wexler's family. Graham was the man Tessa had been dating for almost a year, the kind of man who wore clean boots that never seen mud. His family owned half of something everywhere you turned in town. Farmland, commercial buildings, a small bank, a foundation that sponsored scholarships and put your name on the library wing. People said old money like it meant something holy, and my mother was saying it like a warning. "Okay," I said again. "And?" Celeste cleared her throat. "Your sister is under a lot of pressure. She's worked very hard to get where she is, and first impressions matter." I stared at my own hands, blackened under the nails, knuckles scabbed from last week when I slipped with a wrench. I waited for the part she was circling. "Maris," Celeste said, "I don't want you to take this the wrong way." A slow heat crept up my neck. "There is no right way to take that," I said. She ignored that. "You know how people are," she said. "They notice things, they make assumptions, and I just think for this one day, it might be better if you sit Thanksgiving out." For a second, I didn't understand the sentence. It didn't fit in my head. Sit Thanksgiving out sounded like skipping a dentist appointment, not missing the one holiday my family always insisted was sacred. "You mean "Don't come," I said. Celeste's voice stayed gentle, like she was offering me tea. "I'm saying it might be best if you don't come to the house this year, just this year, until things are more settled." "Settled," I repeated. "Tessa needs everything to look perfect. She needs the evening to feel, well, polished. And you, Maris, you have a way of standing out." I let out a short, sharp breath that made my chest ache. "Standing out," I said, "like I'm fireworks." Celeste hesitated. "That is not what I meant." I knew what she meant. She meant my work boots by the door. She meant the smell of motor oil that never fully leaves your skin. She meant the way my hair never sat right in family photos because I didn't have time to get it done, and because I stopped trying years ago. She meant that when the Wexlers looked at our family, she wanted to see Tessa and not see me. My mouth felt dry. "So you're hiding me?" I said. "Don't be dramatic," Celeste replied, and there it was, the first blade, thin and quick. "This is not about you. This is about family. This is about supporting your sister." I laughed, but it came out wrong, like a cough. "Supporting her," I said, "like I've been doing." Celeste's voice tightened. "Maris, I am asking you to be understanding. It's one day. You can do something with your friends. You're always at that garage anyway." I looked through the shop window at the streetlight flickering on, illuminating the steady fall of snow. My garage, Kincaid Auto and Tire, sat on the edge of Cedar Falls, where the storefronts thinned out and the buildings got practical. I had poured 10 years into it. Last summer, I finally renewed my lease for another 5, signed papers with hands that shook from relief more than fear. I was stable now, in the way a woman in her early 40s can be stable when she has no one else to catch her if she falls. And my mother was acting like the garage was a bad habit. "I'm not always at the garage. I go home, I eat, I sleep, I pay taxes like everyone else." Celeste softened again, like she was pressing a handkerchief over what she just did. "You know what I mean," she said. "Your lifestyle is different, and the Wexlers are, well, they are particular." "Particular," I repeated, tasting the word, "like they're allergic to people who work for a living?" Celeste's patience snapped just enough to show the truth underneath. "Maris, please," she said, "don't make this harder. Tessa has been planning. She wants the table to look right, the house to look right, the family to look right. I am trying to help her." And I didn't fit into right. I felt something shift behind my ribs, an old familiar click. Not surprise, not even anger exactly, more like recognition. Because it wasn't the first time. My mind jumped to small moments that used to confuse me and now felt like a pattern laid out on paper. The family photo on my father's mantel where I was cropped at the shoulder. The Christmas Eve when my mother asked me to arrive after dessert because the church friends were coming over early. The wedding shower for Tessa's friend when Celeste handed me a platter of sandwiches and told me to stay in the kitchen if I could, just until everyone got settled. The times decisions were made, vacations, renovations, even Grandpa's funeral arrangements, and I found out after the fact, like news that didn't require my involvement. I had always told myself it was misunderstanding, timing, my own fault for working too much, my own fault for being different. Now my mother was saying it plainly. "Don't come." I swallowed hard. "Does Tessa know you're calling me?" I asked. Celeste paused, then said, "Of course, we talked about it. She didn't want to hurt your feelings. She just thinks it will be easier this way." "Easier for who?" I asked. Celeste's voice cooled. "Maris," she said, "you are doing that thing again." "What thing?" I asked. "Turning everything into a personal attack, when really we are trying to keep the peace." Keep the peace. The phrase landed like a heavy object. I pictured Tessa in my mother's dining room, probably already planning centerpiece colors and which wine glasses to set out. My sister, with her sleek hair and her perfect smile, trained by years in public relations to look like she belonged anywhere. I pictured Graham Wexler beside her, tall and calm, with eyes that assessed and approved. His family walking through our front door, taking in the house, the furniture, the family, and I pictured my mother trying to angle the scene so it looked like a holiday magazine spread. And I pictured myself, hands stained, shoulders tense, the wrong kind of woman in the wrong kind of room. I could have argued. I could have begged. I could have said, "I'm your daughter too," and watched my mother turn that into another lesson about being mature. Instead, my voice came out flat. "Okay," I said. Celeste exhaled as if she had been holding her breath. "Thank you," she said. "I knew you would understand. You always do." That sentence hurt more than anything else she'd said, because it was true. I always did. I always made myself smaller so someone else could feel bigger. Celeste kept talking, practical now. "We'll drop off a plate for you the next day," she said, "and maybe after the holidays we can all sit down and talk when things calm down." I didn't answer. "Mars," she said, "are you there?" I looked around my garage, the worn tile behind the counter, the coffee mug with a chipped rim, the calendar on the wall with grease fingerprints smudging the dates, the warmth of the shop heater fighting the cold outside, Rosa's laugh drifting from the back office as she argued with the printer. I was there. I was always there, just not where my family wanted me. "Yeah," I said, "I'm here." "Good," Celeste replied, and her tone was bright again, like she'd successfully solved a problem. "We'll see you soon." She hung up before I could say anything else. I stood still for a moment, phone in my hand, listening to the empty line. Then I set the phone down on the workbench and stared at the car on the lifts like I'd forgotten what I was doing. Snow tapped the windows softly. Somewhere in town, my sister was probably smiling into a mirror, practicing the version of herself she planned to show the Wexlers. Somewhere in town, my mother was setting a table and telling herself she was doing the right thing. And I was standing alone in a garage I had built with my own hands, wondering with a dull calm that scared me whether anyone in that house would even notice if I stopped showing up at all. Chapter 2. The Daughter They Called Only When Things Broke. I did not stop showing up right away. The truth is, nothing dramatic changed the next morning. I unlocked the garage like always. I flipped on the lights. I poured burnt coffee into a chipped mug and pretended my hands were steady. But once the idea took root, that question I had asked myself the night before, it started following me everywhere. I began noticing patterns I had trained myself not to see. My family never called just to ask how I was doing. They never called to ask if I was tired or if business was slow or if I needed help. When my phone lit up with my mother's name or my sister's, it was always because something had gone wrong. I could trace it back years. Winter of 2012. The furnace at my parents' house went out in the middle of January. The kind of cold that makes the air hurt when you breathe. My mother called just after dawn. "Maris," she said, "I hate to bother you, but the heat is completely gone." I remember standing in my kitchen in thick socks, staring at the frost on my own window. I asked if she had called a repair company. "They're all booked," she said, "and you know how they overcharge." So I drove over with my toolbox in the trunk, crawled into a dusty crawl space, and got the pilot light going again. When I was done, my mother wrapped her arms around herself and smiled. "What would we do without you?" she said. I drove home thinking that meant something. A few years later, it was my father's truck. Would not start the morning he had a meeting. He called while I was elbow deep in another job. "Maris, I'm stuck," he said. "The truck won't turn over." I asked if he could take my mother's car. "It's in the shop," he said. It always was. I closed my bay early, drove across town, replaced a dead battery, and sent him on his way. He waved once as he pulled out of the driveway. No offer to pay, no follow-up. At some point, it stopped feeling like helping and started feeling like being summoned. Plumbing leaks, roof shingles ripped loose in storms, a hot water heater that flooded the basement while I was on vacation, and they still expected me to handle the bill when I got back. Then there were the smaller requests, the ones that came with soft voices and careful words. Could you just put it on your card for now? We'll pay you back when things settle. You know we would do the same for you. They never did. There were never repayment plans, never conversations, just assumptions. If I hesitated, my mother would sigh and say she thought family helped each other. If I pushed back, my sister would roll her eyes and say I was being dramatic. Somewhere along the way, gratitude faded. Expectation took its place. At the same time, I started hearing things. Not directly, never to my face. It came through customers who hesitated before booking work, through neighbors who asked questions sideways. Your sister said you were intense. I heard you do things your own way. People say you do not like being told no. Lauren never lied outright. She did not have to. She selected details and let people fill in the rest. I knew how that game worked. I watched her do it for a living. One afternoon, Rosa came into the office with a frown and a clipboard. "City inspector was here while you were out," she said. "He left a notice." I looked at the paper. Noise complaint, routine check. That was new. A week later, my landlord stopped by unannounced. He leaned against the office door frame and looked around like he had never really seen the place before. "Area's changing," he said. "Lot more eyes on this block lately." I asked what that meant. "Means rent might need adjusting next year," he said. "Just something to think about." Then came the letter from the licensing office. Nothing alarming, just a request for updated documentation, proof of compliance. Standard procedure, it said. Individually, none of it was illegal. None of it crossed the line. Together, it felt like pressure. One night, after closing, I sat alone at my desk with the shop quiet around me. I opened my laptop and searched through old emails. I scrolled through text threads I had never deleted. My father asking if I could cover a repair until his pension deposit came through. My mother sending photos of a leaking pipe and writing, "Can you take care of this?" Lauren texting late at night with a smiley face and saying, "You're a lifesaver." I realized something then that made my stomach drop. I had no record of what I had given them, not in any way that protected me. I started taking screenshots. I saved emails to folders. I printed invoices. I highlighted transfers on my bank statements. Not because I wanted revenge, because something had shifted. Silence was no longer keeping me safe. The next time my mother called, it was about the roof. "Maris," she said, "the contractor wants a deposit, and your father is short this month." I asked how much. She told me. I said I needed it in writing. There was a pause. "Why?" she asked. I said because I needed to keep track of things better. Her voice cooled. "Since when do you need paperwork with your own family?" "Since now," I said. She sighed. "You are getting strange," she said. "Lauren says you have been acting different lately." I said maybe I was just paying attention. That call ended quickly. I did not send the money that night. I sat at my kitchen table instead, spreading papers out in front of me, old statements, old receipts, notes I had scribbled and forgotten. I saw years of my life laid out in numbers, not a single thank you attached to any of it. At the garage the next day, Rosa watched me organizing files. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Just getting my house in order." She did not push. She never did. That evening, after locking up, I opened the bottom drawer of my desk and placed everything inside, neatly stacked, labeled, contained. I stared at it longer than I needed to. For years, I had told myself I was helping because I wanted to, that it made me a good daughter, a good sister. Now I understood something harder. I had been carrying my family for a long time, and I had nothing in my hands to show for it except the weight. Chapter 3. The Family I'd Built Without Asking Permission. I went quiet after that. Not the kind of quiet that begs for attention, not the kind of quiet that slams doors, just a steady, deliberate quiet where I stopped reaching first. I stopped trying to translate myself into something my family could tolerate. The next week at the garage, I worked like a woman trying to keep her balance on ice. I stayed busy on purpose. Oil changes, brake jobs, winter tire swaps, battery tests. The season always did that to people. The first real cold hits Iowa, and suddenly everyone remembers their car is one bad morning away from ruining their whole day. Rosa watched me move through the shop like I had a list taped to my spine. "You are going to burn out," she said one evening as we counted the cash drawer. "I'm fine," I said. "You are not fine," she said. And then she softened, like she knew pushing would only make me shut down harder. "You do not have to explain anything to me. Just do not disappear inside your work." I nodded like I heard her. I did hear her. I just did not know how to answer without feeling like I was asking her to carry my mess. Rosa was not family by blood, but she had been in my life long enough to know the shape of my silences. She had been at my garage since the first year, back when it was barely more than 2 bays, an office that smelled like old carpet, and my stubborn belief that if I worked hard enough, everything would hold. I trusted her more than I trusted anyone in my own house. A few days after Thanksgiving, she came into the office holding a paper cup of coffee and a flyer. "Just look," she said, sliding it across the desk. It was from a local shelter for teens, a place that housed kids who had bounced around too many foster homes or aged out of systems that never felt like home. The flyer asked for businesses willing to take on part-time help, basic work, paid hourly, supervised, skills training. "We do not run a charity," I said automatically, the way I always did when something sounded like it might turn into a complication. Rosa leaned on the doorframe. "We already are a charity," she said, "just not officially. You fix half the town on favors, and you never invoice the people who need it most." I stared at the flyer. My first instinct was to say no, because my life already felt like it had too many people pulling on it. Then I thought about being erased from my own family table like I was a stain. And something in me loosened. "Fine," I said. "1 kid, part-time. If it doesn't work, we stop." Rosa smiled like she knew I would say yes. A week later, the shelter director brought a girl to the garage. Her name was Lila Harper, 17, thin jacket that did not look warm enough for the weather, dark hair shoved under a knit cap, eyes that scanned the shop like she expected someone to tell her she didn't belong. The director introduced her and talked fast, like she was trying to sell me on a product. "Lila is reliable," she said. "She needs structure. She's looking for a steady job before she graduates. She can start after school, 3 days a week." Lila barely spoke. When she did, her voice was flat. "I can work. I am not stupid." "I did not say you were," I replied. She looked at me like she was waiting for the catch. Rosa stepped forward with her usual warm confidence. "Okay," Rosa said. "We can start simple. Cleaning, organizing, learning names of tools. No one expects you to rebuild an engine on day 1. Lila shrugged. "I can do more than clean." "You can, but you earn trust first, same as anyone." Her eyes flicked to my hands, to the grease, to the bruises on my knuckles, and something shifted, like she recognized this was not a place where people pretended to be perfect. She started the next Monday. At first, she worked like a cornered animal, quick, sharp movements, shoulders tight. She flinched every time a customer raised their voice, even when the customer was just frustrated with their car. She did not make small talk. She did not smile. She did not ask for help. But she watched everything. She watched how I talked to customers, calm and direct, even when they came in ready to fight. She watched how Rosa handled the phones, how she soothed people without promising miracles. She watched the rhythm of the garage, how the work flowed, how you could be tough without being cruel. One afternoon, a customer named Art came storming into the office waving a receipt. "This is ridiculous," he yelled. "I told you I needed it by noon." Rosa glanced at me. I stepped out from the back, wiped my hands, and faced him. "Art, your alternator was worse than we thought. If we rush it, you'll be back here next week and you'll be angrier. It will be done by 4. That's the truth." He opened his mouth to argue, then hesitated. He knew me. He knew I did not lie to make things easier. "Fine," he grumbled, "but you better not charge me extra. You're paying for the part and the labor we told you, nothing else. Rosa will print it for you." He left still irritated, but quieter, like the wind was taken out of him. When I turned, I saw Lila standing by the shelves, holding a rag, staring at me. "You talk like you don't care if they like you," she said. "I care if they respect me. That's different." Her eyes blinked like no one had ever said that to her. The mini disaster happened the following week. It was a Tuesday, snow coming down heavier, the kind that made the shop feel dim even with all the lights on. We were busy. Everyone was irritated. Winter did that too. I was halfway through a brake job when Marty, one of my techs, came into the office with his face tight. "My torque wrench is gone," he said. Rosa looked up from the computer. "Gone like missing or gone like you forgot where you put it?" "Missing," Marty snapped. His eyes slid toward the corner where Lila had been cleaning and organizing. I saw it happen. That silent accusation that needed no words. Lila stiffened. I did not take it. Marty crossed his arms. "Then where is it?" Rosa started to speak, but I held a hand. "Stop," I said. Not loud, just firm enough to cut through the tension. Marty looked at me. "Maris, we can't have tools walking out of here." "We also can't accuse people without facts," I said. Lila's face flushed, anger and fear mixing. She opened her mouth, then shut it again, like she had learned that defending herself only made things worse. "Okay," I said, to Marty, "walk with me." Marty frowned, but followed. We went through the shop slowly. I checked the tool log. I checked the shelves. I asked questions, calm ones. I watched faces. No one had the look of guilt, just the look of being tired. Then I remembered something. Last Friday, we had moved some equipment to make room for a delivery. I walked toward the storage closet, the cramped one near the back that everyone hated because it was always a mess. I opened the door, and there it was, sitting on a box of air filters, like it had been waiting for someone to notice. Marty stared at it. His cheeks went red. "I must have set it there," he muttered. I picked it up and handed it to him. "That's why we don't assume," I said quietly. He nodded, eyes dropping. Lila was still standing by the shelves when we returned. Her jaw was clenched so tight it looked like it hurt. I didn't make Marty apologize in front of everyone. I didn't make a speech. I just met Lila's eyes. "Back to work," I said, normal voice. "You're fine." Her shoulders dropped a fraction, like she had been waiting for the next hit and it didn't come. Later, when the shop was quieter, she came into the office, hesitant. "I wasn't going to cry," she said, like it mattered. "I know," I replied. She stared at the floor. "People always think it's me." Rosa stepped closer, her voice gentle. "Not here," she said. "Not if we can help it." Lila looked between us, uncertain, then gave a small nod and walked back out. 2 days after that, a black SUV rolled into the lot, clean enough to look out of place near the slush and oil stains. The driver stepped out wearing a wool coat that probably cost more than my monthly utility bill. Graham Wexler. I knew his face from the few times I'd seen him at events with Tessa, always polite, always careful, the kind of man who could smile without showing too much. He walked into the garage and the air shifted, not because he was important, but because people sensed money the way dogs sensed fear. Rosa came to the counter first. "Can we help you?" she asked. Graham gave a small smile. My car started making a grinding sound when I turned. I was told this is the place to come. Rosa glanced at me. I stepped forward, wiping my hands. "What are you driving?" He pointed to the SUV outside. "That one." I nodded. "Keys?" He hesitated, just a flicker, then handed them to me. As I walked out to look, he followed. Not too close, just close enough to watch. The grinding was obvious when I turned the wheel. I crouched, inspected the front axle, then stood. "Your CV joint is going," I said. "Not an emergency today, but it will get worse. We can replace it." Graham nodded. "How long?" 2 hours, maybe 3, depends on parts availability. He looked around the shop, at the men working, at the woman with her hair tied back, at Lila sweeping by the wall. His gaze landed on Lila for a second. He saw her face, the guarded posture, the way she kept to herself. Then he looked at me. "You run this place?" he asked. "I do," I said. "You have owned it long?" he said. 10 years, I replied. He seemed surprised, like he had expected a man to answer, or maybe he had expected someone younger, or maybe he had expected someone easier to dismiss. "People speak highly of you," he said. I almost laughed. "People speak highly when they need something fixed." Graham's mouth lifted slightly. "That sounds like experience talking." Rosa called from the office. "Maris, the parts supplier is on the line." I turned back inside. Graham followed again. While Rosa spoke to the supplier, Graham stayed near the counter. "My girlfriend is your sister," he said quietly. I did not react. I kept my eyes on the clipboard. "Tessa," I said. He nodded. "She mentioned you." I could hear the carefulness, the same carefulness my mother used, like he was choosing words. "And?" I said. Graham glanced toward the shop floor, then back to me. "I do not think she knows you well," he said. That was the closest he came to saying what he really meant, that he had been given a version of me, a story, a curated impression. I met his gaze. "Most people do not," I said. "They just know what they have been told." Graham looked like he was thinking. Then he said, "I prefer to see things for myself." Rosa returned, lowering the phone. "We can get the part by noon tomorrow," she said. I nodded. "Then we do it tomorrow." Graham reached into his pocket and handed me a card. Plain, expensive paper. "Call me when you know the cost," he said. "I will," I replied. He paused at the door, then looked back at the garage, the people, the warmth. "Thank you," he said, and it sounded real. When he left, Rosa raised an eyebrow. "Well," she said, "that was interesting." I exhaled. "We're fixing his car tomorrow, that is all." Rosa smiled like she didn't believe me, but she didn't push. Over the next couple of weeks, the garage felt different. Not because my family changed, they did not. My mother did not call to ask how I was doing. My sister did not apologize. If anything, they went quieter, like they were waiting for me to crawl back into place. But inside the garage, something else was happening. Lila started talking a little more. Not much, but enough. Rosa started bringing in extra food on late days, sandwiches, soup in a crock pot. Customers lingered longer, not because we were slow, but because it was warm and people were lonely in winter. A neighbor brought in a box of ornaments and said, "For your office window, in case you want some holiday cheer." I said I did not need it, but I took it anyway. One evening, as we locked up, Rosa looked at me and said, "You know, you could do something for Christmas Eve. Not a big thing, just a small thing." I frowned. "We are not a community center." Rosa shrugged. "Maybe we are a little." I thought about the empty feeling in my chest when my mother told me not to come home. I thought about Lila, about how she flinched when people assumed the worst. I thought about how quiet the garage felt after the last customer left. I could keep the doors open a little, I said. Rosa smiled. That is all it takes. That night, driving home through the snow, I realized something that made my throat tighten. I had been mourning a place at a table that never truly had a chair for me. All this time, without making a speech or begging for a seat, I had been building something else, a steadier kind of belonging, one earned moment at a time. And when I pictured Christmas Eve now, I did not picture my mother's dining room. I pictured my garage, warm lights, a few folding chairs, people who showed up because they wanted to, not because they needed to hide someone to look perfect. Chapter 4. When Silence Became a Threat. The picture in my head felt almost peaceful, and that was probably why it did not last. The first sign came from a customer, not my family. It was a Thursday morning, cold enough that the air in the garage stung my nose when I opened the bay doors. Rosa was at the counter, coffee in one hand, phone in the other, juggling appointments while I finished tightening a belt tensioner. A woman I had never seen before stepped inside, hesitated, then walked up to the counter like she was bracing for something. "Are you Morris?" she asked. "I am," I said, wiping my hands. Her eyes flicked over my coveralls, then away. "My neighbor told me you were good," she said, "but she also said you can be, well, intense." Rosa's head snapped up. I kept my voice even. What does intense mean to her? The woman gave a small, nervous laugh. "I do not know. That you get angry, that you do not like people questioning you." I felt the words land in my chest like a hand pressing down. Rosa leaned forward. "Ma'am, she's a mechanic, not a therapist. If your car is broken, she will tell you the truth. If you want to be lied to, there are other shops." The woman blinked, surprised, then looked embarrassed. I don't want trouble," she said. I nodded. "Neither do I said. "What is your car doing?" She described the noise, I listened, I scheduled her in, and she left looking relieved. But the whole thing stayed with me. Not because it mattered what one customer thought, because it confirmed something I had started sensing. Someone was talking, and they were not talking about my work. They were talking about me. It did not take long before the whispers grew teeth. A regular customer named Connie, who usually chatted while I rang her up, asked too casually one day, "You doing okay, honey? I heard you've been having a rough time." I kept my face blank. "From who?" Connie waved her hand like it was nothing. "Oh, you know, folks say you've been acting strange, snapping at people, getting emotional." Rosa's mouth tightened behind the counter. I said, "Did you hear that from someone specific?" Connie hesitated. "Your sister," she admitted. "I ran into her at the grocery store. She was worried. She said you've been, unstable." Unstable. The word was soft in Connie's mouth and sharp in my head. Tessa had chosen it carefully. It sounded concerned. It sounded harmless. It sounded like she was trying to protect people from me. I forced myself to breathe slowly. "Thanks for telling me," I said, and Connie left, looking like she had done a kind thing. As the days passed, the calls started. My mother first. She left a voicemail that sounded like a church announcement. "Morris, call me. We need to clear the air. This is getting out of hand." Then my father, shorter, colder. "Your mother is upset. You need to stop making this harder." Then Tessa, with her polished voice that made every sentence sound reasonable. "Morris, you cannot just disappear and expect people not to worry. Do you know what you are doing to Mom?" I did not answer the first few. I told myself silence was better than saying something that would be used against me. I told myself I had already said enough by not showing up. Then one afternoon, as I was rolling a tire across the shop floor, My phone rang again, and something in me snapped, not in anger, in exhaustion. I answered. Hello? Morris, my mother said immediately, her voice tight. Finally. What do you want? I asked. There was a beat of silence, like she didn't expect me to ask that plainly. I want my family back, she said, and the way she said it made it sound like I stole something. I did not go anywhere. You told me not to come. That's not what happened, she said quickly. You're twisting it. You always twist things. I closed my eyes for a second. Mom, I said, you called me and told me I would make Tessa look bad. You told me to sit Thanksgiving out. It was one holiday, she snapped. Then her voice softened instantly. And I didn't say you were bad. I said the situation was delicate. Delicate, I repeated. Yes, she said. The Wexlers are particular. Tessa is under pressure. We're trying to do what is best for everyone. And what is best for everyone is that I stay hidden. Her breath hitched. Do you hear yourself? She asked. This is why people worry about you. You make everything so extreme. There it was again, the same move. Take my reaction and label it as the problem. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. I forced myself to stay steady. Why are you calling me now? I asked. She hesitated. Then she said, because we need to resolve this. Tessa is getting married someday, Morris. She needs stability. She needs support. You're making her look like she comes from chaos. I stared at the concrete floor, the oil stains, the small cracks. You mean I look like chaos, I said. Don't do that, she said sharply. Don't put words in my mouth. We're calling because you've been acting different and because we need to talk about practical things. I mean, practical things like money, I said. Her silence was too long. Then she said, you know we're under strain right now. The bank, the winter deadlines, we just need to hold things together until spring. The words slipped out too fast, like she didn't mean to admit them. I stood very still. The bank? I repeated. Morris, she said, panic creeping in. Don't latch onto that. That's not what this is about. It's exactly what this is about, I said quietly. You're in debt, and you need the Wexlers to think everything is fine. She inhaled sharply. You have no idea what you are talking about. I think I do, I replied, because you only call when something breaks. Her voice rose. We raised you. And you remind me every time you want something, I said. That was the first time I heard her lose control. You're being cruel, she said, after everything we've done for you. I almost laughed. It came out as a bitter sound. Tell me one thing you've done for me in the last 10 years that didn't benefit you, I asked. She went silent. Then she said, in a low voice that felt like a threat, Tessa is worried about what you might do. She's worried you'll embarrass us. By existing? I said. You're not thinking straight. You need to talk to someone. I'm done talking, and I hung up. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline I had kept locked down for years. Rosa had been watching from the office doorway. Her eyes were sharp. That was your mom? I nodded. Rosa stepped closer, voice low. So now you're unstable. I let out a breath. Apparently. Rosa shook her head slowly. Your sister is planting that word everywhere. I heard it twice this week. I stared at my desk, the drawer, the paperwork inside. That night, after closing, an email hit my inbox with a subject line that made my stomach drop. Cease and desist. It wasn't from a law firm I recognized, no official letterhead, no case number, just a carefully written message claiming that false statements about Tessa Kincaid and the Kincaid family could be considered defamation. It warns me to stop spreading damaging rumors. I read it twice, then a third time. I hadn't said anything. That was the point. They were building a story where my silence could be turned into guilt. I called an old acquaintance, Neeta Patel, an attorney I met years ago when she brought her car in and we ended up talking while I replaced her starter. She picked up on the second ring. "Maris," she said, "what's going on?" "I got an email. It's not official, but it's trying to scare me." "Forward it," she said, "and listen to me. Don't talk to them on the phone anymore. Keep everything in writing. If they show up, don't meet them alone. Don't let them bait you into saying something emotional they can twist." I swallowed. Can they do anything with this? Nina's voice was calm. "Anyone can threaten. The question is whether they have facts. You have facts. Stick to facts." After I hung up, I sat at my desk for a long time staring at the printer. Then I opened the drawer and pulled out the stack of papers I had been collecting. I began sorting them again, cleaner this time, more deliberate, as if organizing the truth could make my chest feel less tight. 2 days later, the Cedar Falls Gazette ran a feature on women in skilled trades. It was a human interest piece, photos of the garage, my hands on a wrench, Rosa smiling behind the counter. They called my shop an anchor for the community, a place people trusted. I didn't ask for it. The reporter had been sent by someone from the shelter after seeing how Lila was doing. The article felt warm, honest, and it lit a fuse. The next morning, Tensa called 3 times. I did not answer. Then she showed up at the garage. Not alone. Graham Wexler stepped out of the passenger side of her car. He looked uncomfortable, like he had been talked into it. Tessa walked in first, glossy hair, perfect coat, eyes already scanning for witnesses. She smiled when she saw Rosa. The kind of smile meant for an audience. "Hi," she said. "We just wanted to check on you." Rosa's voice was flat. "We are working." Tessa turned toward me, her tone softened, sweet and concerned. "Maris, people are worried," she said. "That article, it is great, but it is also, a lot. Mom has been beside herself." I looked past her to Graham. He met my eyes and I saw something like doubt there. Tessa noticed and shifted instantly, her voice changing, sharper, lower, meant for me. "We need to talk privately," she said. I shook my head. "No." Her eyes flashed. Then she turned back toward Graham, voice sweet again. "I just want my sister safe," she said. "She has been spiraling. She does not even realize how she sounds." Graham's face tightened. He looked at me, then at the shop, then at Leela working quietly near the shelves, and his gaze lingered, like he was taking inventory of the reality in front of him. Tessa followed his eyes and smiled too fast. "See," she said, "this is what I mean. She is surrounding herself with chaos." I felt my pulse steady instead of spike. It was strange, watching her perform concern while trying to poison the room. Rosa stepped forward. "Get out," Rosa said. "You are not going to do this here." Tessa's smile slipped. "Excuse me?" Rosa did not blink. "You heard me." Graham cleared his throat. "Tessa, maybe we should go," he said quietly. Tessa froze for a fraction of a second, then recovered. "We will talk later," she said to me, her voice suddenly cold. "Mom is coming on Christmas Eve. We are done being ignored. We are resolving this." She turned and walked out like she had won something. Graham hesitated at the door. He looked back at me. "I'm sorry," he said, and it sounded like he meant it. Then he followed her. The garage felt heavier after they left, like their presence had dragged something ugly through the air. Rosa exhaled slowly. "So, that's the plan? Christmas Eve?" I nodded. I went into the office, opened my desk drawer, and pulled out the stack of documents. I slid them into a clean envelope, one that didn't have oil stains or coffee rings. My hands did not shake this time. For the first time in a long time, I felt the weight shift off my shoulders and into something solid I could actually hold. Chapter 5. The receipts didn't raise their voice. By Christmas Eve, the envelope had become part of my routine. I slid it into the bottom drawer every night after closing, and every morning I checked that it was still there, like it might grow legs and walk away. Not because I thought someone would break in, but because I was afraid of the old habit in me that wanted to doubt myself. The habit that said, maybe I was overreacting, maybe I should just let it go, maybe family was family no matter what. The week before Christmas, the garage felt different in the best way. Rosa brought in a string of warm white lights and taped them along the office window. Leela found a beat-up little tabletop tree at a thrift store and set it near the coffee machine, crooked and stubborn, like it belonged with us. Customers brought in tins of cookies and paper plates of fudge. One woman dropped off a slow cooker and said I should keep it for the night, like it was the most normal thing in the world for a repair shop to host a holiday meal. I did not announce anything. I did not invite the whole town. It spread the way good things sometimes do, quietly. Someone hears you are open, someone else says they have nowhere to be, someone shows up with a pie and sits down like they have always been welcome. On Christmas Eve, the first person arrived before the sun fully set. Then another, then another. The bay doors stayed closed because of the cold, but inside the shop the heat hummed and the air smelled like chili and cinnamon rolls and diesel and the faint sweetness of pine from that crooked little tree. Leela hovered near the shelves at first, watching. I could tell she was waiting for someone to judge her for being there. Then Rosa handed her a plate and said, "Eat." Leela took it like she was surprised she was allowed. People laughed softly. Someone played music from a phone. A few kids from the shelter came in with their jackets still on, cheeks red from the cold, eyes wide like they did not believe they were welcome anywhere on a holiday night. I stood behind the counter, refilling cups, answering small questions, breathing in the sound of a room that felt safe. Then, the front door opened hard enough to rattle the glass. The air changed instantly. My mother walked in first, Celeste Kincaid, wearing a wool coat and the kind of lipstick she only wore when she wanted to look put together. My father followed, jaw tight, and behind them, Tessa, hair perfect, eyes sharp, cheeks flushed like she had been rehearsing the speech she planned to give me. Graham Wexler stepped in last. He paused just inside the doorway, taking in the room. The lights, the folding chairs, the food, the people. His expression shifted, not in disgust, not even in surprise, but in something like understanding. My mother's eyes swept the garage like she was searching for a mistake. She found me. "There you are," she said, voice bright and brittle. "We need to talk." Conversations around the room faded. Not fully, but enough that the silence between her words felt heavy. Rosa stepped closer to my shoulder without touching me. Leela froze, plate in hand. I kept my voice steady. "This is private property," I said. "You were told not to come unless you could be respectful." My mother's smile twitched. "Do not start with that," she said. "We are your family." Tessa moved forward like she owned the space. "You have been humiliating us," she said. "You think you can just run off and create some little pity party and act like we do not exist." A few people shifted in their chairs. Someone cleared their throat. I looked at Tessa, then at my mother. "I did not run off," I said. "You told me not to come to Thanksgiving because I would not look right." My mother's face tightened. "That is not what I said." "It is exactly what you said," I replied. Tessa laughed, sharp and loud. "Listen to her," she said, turning toward the room like she was addressing a jury. "This is what she does. She twists everything. She is unstable." The word hit the room like a thrown object. Graham's shoulders stiffened. He looked at Tessa, then back at me. My father finally spoke. His voice was low, angry. "We did not come here to be lectured," he said. "We came here to settle this." "Settle what?" I asked. My mother stepped forward. You have been refusing to answer calls. You have been making yourself look like a victim. People are talking, and now, with this article and all this attention, you are embarrassing your sister at the worst possible time." Tessa's eyes flashed. "You have no idea what I have sacrificed," she said. "You are trying to ruin my future." I let the words wash over me. The old version of me would have scrambled to defend myself, to explain, to smooth things over, to apologize for existing. Instead, I looked around the room at the people who showed up because they wanted to, not because they needed a performance. I saw Leela watching me like she was waiting to learn what strength looked like. I kept my voice calm. "I am not arguing with you tonight. If you cannot keep your voices down and treat people here with respect, you need to leave." Tessa scoffed. "You cannot kick us out." I nodded toward the door. "I can," I said. "This is my business. My lease is in my name. This is private property. You are trespassing the second I tell you to go." My mother's eyes widened like she couldn't believe I would say that out loud. "Maris, how dare you threaten us?" I did not raise my voice. "I am not threatening you. I am setting a boundary." Tessa turned to Graham, voice suddenly sweet. "See, this is what I mean. She is aggressive. She is trying to make us look like villains." Graham did not answer her right away. He was still looking at the room, at the faces, at the quiet discomfort, at the fact that no one here looked afraid of me. My mother started again, faster now. "We have done everything for you. We raised you. We gave you a roof. We supported you." "You used me," I said, and my voice stayed level. "You called when things broke. You called when bills were due. You called when you needed someone to fix what you did not want to pay for." My father barked a laugh. "That is ridiculous." Tessa snapped. "You are delusional." I reached into the office drawer and pulled out the envelope. The room went very still. Not dramatic, just attentive, like everyone sensed a shift in the energy. I walked to the small table near the coffee station and placed the envelope down gently. No slam, no flourish. "This is not a speech. It's just the record." Tessa's eyes narrowed. "What is that?" I slid the contents out just enough so the top page showed, a bank statement with highlighted transfers. Bank statements, transfer records, invoices, and messages asking for help. My mother's face went pale. "Put that away," she said sharply. I did not. I did not read anything aloud. I did not list numbers. I did not explain the context. I did not need to. The papers spoke in their own quiet language, dates, amounts, notes, the repetition of need that had run through my life like a thread. Tessa lunged forward half a step, then stopped when Rosa moved between us. "Do not touch her," Rosa said. My mother turned on Rosa. "This does not concern you." Rosa's voice did not shake. "It concerns me when you come into my workplace and try to bully my boss in front of kids." My father looked around, finally noticing the shelter kids, the neighbors, the customers, all watching him. Graham stepped closer to the table. He did not touch the papers. He did not need to. He just looked at the highlighted lines, then at the invoices, then at a printed screenshot of a message from my mother that said, "Can you put it on your card for now? We'll pay you back when the bank stuff settles." His jaw tightened. Tessa saw his reaction and panicked. Her voice rose. "This is private at me. She's trying to destroy us." I looked at her. "You came here," I said. "You chose the audience." My mother reached for Graham's arm like she could pull him back into the story she wanted. "Graham," she said, "please, you don't understand. She's taking things out of context." Graham pulled his arm away gently. "I understand enough," he said, and his voice was calm in a way that made it devastating. "You told me her sister was unstable, you told me she was dangerous, and you brought me here to watch you prove it." Tessa's face froze. "Graham, that is not fair." He looked at her, and something in his expression hardened. "You changed your tone the second other people were watching. You called this a concern, but you came here to control her. This is not concern." Tessa's face flushed bright red. "You don't know what I have been dealing with." Graham glanced at the papers again, then at me. "You have been dealing with being used," he said quietly. Then he looked back at Tessa. "I can't be part of this." My mother made a small sound, like she had been slapped. My father took a step forward, anger flaring. "You don't get to judge our family." Graham's eyes held his. "I am not judging your family because of her. I am judging it because of you." For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the heater and a distant laugh from someone trying to pretend the room was not holding its breath. Tessa's composure finally cracked. Her voice went sharp and ugly. "This is your fault. You always ruin things. You always have." I did not answer. I did not need to. My mother's face shifted, and for the first time that night I saw fear, not of me, but of the truth sitting on that table, the truth she couldn't smooth over with tradition and appearances. She grabbed my father's sleeve. "We are leaving," she said. My father hesitated, still angry, then looked around at the faces watching him and seemed to realize there was no way to win without looking exactly like what he was. Tessa stood frozen for a second longer, eyes locked on Graham as if she could pull him back with sheer will. Then she turned and followed my parents out. The door shut behind them and the room exhaled all at once. I felt something strange in my chest, not triumph, not revenge, relief. Rosa touched my elbow lightly. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "Yeah," I said. "I think I am." Leela stood near the shelves, staring at the closed door. Her voice was small. "You did not yell," she said. "I did not have to," I replied. A few people started moving again, picking up plates, offering help, restarting conversations in quieter tones. The shelter kids went back to their food. Someone turned the music up one notch. Graham lingered by the door, hands in his pockets. "I am sorry," he said. "You do not owe me that," I replied. He nodded once. "For what it is worth," he said, "you built something real here." After he left, I went into the office and closed the drawer where the envelope had been. I sat at my desk for a minute, listening to the sound of my garage full of people who wanted to be there. The calls stopped after that night. The threats disappeared. The whispers faded into something less sharp. Leela kept coming to work. She started laughing sometimes, small bursts that surprised her. Rosa stayed steady at my side. The garage stayed open. The lights stayed up through winter. I did not win a war. I just stopped losing myself. If you have ever been made to feel like you were